Buster Scruggs is riding his horse through isolated lands on a sunny afternoon in the Wild West. He appears to be a cheerful singing cowboy, but the truth is that he's the most dangerous gunman in the area, with a large reward on his head. During his travels, he comes across a cantina and stops for a drink. However, the bartender refuses to sell whiskey to him because it is a prohibited drink and thus only outlaws will be served. Buster tries to explain that he shouldn't be judged based on his clean appearance and cheerful demeanor because he, too, is an outlaw, but no one believes him, and a cowboy is even willing to fight to kick him out. This cowboy quickly regrets underestimating his opponent because Buster is lightning fast and draws his gun in a split second to shoot everyone in the cantina.
I'll get that for you, partner.
Buster then continues on his journey until he reaches Frenchman's Gulch, a town he has never visited before. His first stop is at the local saloon, where he must leave all of his weapons at the door in order to comply with the no-guns policy. Then he joins a poker game at the nearest table on the condition that he pick up the hand left by the player who just left. Unfortunately, when Buster checks the cards, he discovers that the last player left has the infamous dead man's hand and refuses to play it, infuriating the other players, particularly the terrifying Joe. Joe pulls out his hidden gun to threaten Buster, but he quickly defends himself by kicking a loose plank on the table to hit the gun and cause it to turn back on its master, instantly killing Joe. This incident creates a thick sense of tension in the saloon, so Buster begins singing a song about Joe that he makes up on the spot, inspiring everyone to sing and dance along. Their happy time is abruptly interrupted by Joe's brother, who has discovered what happened and challenges Buster to a duel in order to exact revenge. Buster demonstrates his speed once more, and after expertly shooting each of the man's fingers, he finally kills him by looking at him in the mirror just to show off.
Belt, are you ready?
Ready!
Sure hope I don't miss. Be on the left, but in the mirror be on the right.
Buster is feeling smug and confident as usual when another singing cowboy, the Kid, arrives in town and challenges Buster to a duel. This encounter is even faster than the previous one, but this time Buster dies because he has finally found someone faster than him.
Do I want to wear a black suit?
Buster admits as his soul departs the mortal realm that he should have seen it coming because you can't be the top dog forever, and even sings along to the Kid's song. Meanwhile, in New Mexico, a young cowboy comes across an isolated bank and attempts to rob it. The bank teller pretends to help and bends over to take the money, but he's actually moving to shoot his hidden weapons as a distraction before fleeing. The cowboy avoids the shots and quickly grabs the money from the cash box, but as soon as he rushes out, the teller opens fire on him, forcing him to hide behind a well. The cowboy attempts to retaliate, but his efforts are futile because the banker has covered his body with pots and pans that reflect all of the bullets. With this added protection, the teller is able to get close enough to knock the cowboy out. When the cowboy awakens hours later, he finds himself tied to a tree and his hands tied to his horse's saddle. As it turns out, a posse has already found him guilty and sentenced him to death, so this is the cowboy's last chance. Before the cowboy can say anything, they are ambushed by a swarm of Comanche warriors, who slaughter the entire posse but leave the cowboy on his horse, thinking it would be amusing for him to suffer slowly. The cowboy spends a few hours on his horse, trying to keep the animal from moving too far and killing him. Eventually, the cowboy is discovered by a drover, who frees him by shooting the rope and allows him to ride with him for safety. Not even an hour has passed before the cowboy realizes he isn't as lucky as he thought. The drover is a rustler, and when another posse finds them, he rides away, leaving the cowboy behind. Soon after, the cowboy is taken to town, where he is found guilty by the judge and sentenced to death by gallows. While waiting for the end, he focuses on a young woman in the crowd so that the last thing he sees before death is a beautiful sight. Not far away, an aging impresario travels with Harrison, a young man with no arms or legs but a very beautiful voice that he uses to recite Shakespeare and Lincoln classics, among others. When they stop in a town, the wagon transforms into a stage, and the impresario collects money from the audience while Harrison recites his classics. He's also in charge of Harrison's feeding, makeup application, and even helping him relieve himself. It's a frustrating and sad life, and the impresario grows tired of Harrison by the day. When they go to bawdy houses, the impresario doesn't even bother paying for a girl for Harrison. Instead, he leaves him in the same room and turns him around while having his own fun, which means Harrison has to hear everything. The further they travel around remote mountain towns, the less interested audiences are in their small show, and they barely make any money. The impresario notices their audience is small one evening because everyone's attention is drawn to a different wagon. The crow is cheering for a chicken who can do basic addition and subtraction by pecking at some painted numbers. Seeing an opportunity, the impresario decides to purchase the chicken, and he treats it with the same care that he gives Harrison, who is becoming concerned about what is to come. The next day, the impresario stops the wagon near a bridge and drops a large stone into the river beneath it to test its depth. The results are exactly what he needs, and the impresario is back on the road moments later, with only the chicken as a passenger in the wagon because Harrison has also been pushed into the river. Speaking of rivers, one flows down a mountain where a grizzled prospector has arrived to look for gold. His pan initially only picks up tiny gold specks, but by counting the amount each time, the prospector can follow the trail of where he should be digging to find the source. The man even sets up camp alongside the river and survives by fishing and stealing eggs from bird nests. After several days of digging small holes, the prospector locates the source and begins digging deeper. His calculations are correct, and he finally finds a large gold vein that will make him wealthy, but there is no time to celebrate. A young man who has been following the prospector approaches and shoots him. Following a celebratory cigarette, the young man jumps into the hole to move the body, only to be ambushed by the prospector, who had been pretending to be dead. The old man wrestles the guy for his gun and kills him, then checks his body and confirms it was a clean shot. It exited through his back and didn't hit anything significant. After bandaging the wound, the prospector completes his gold mining, buries the young man in the hole, and rides out of the valley on his horse, carrying his new fortune. Meanwhile, siblings Alice and Gilbert have joined a wagon train traversing the Oregon Trail. Gilbert isn't exactly a good businessman, but he claims to have found a new business partner willing to marry his sister once they arrive in Oregon. Gilbert's dog, President Pierce, is traveling with them and is considered extremely annoying by the other passengers due to his constant barking. Gilbert has a violent coughing fit and dies of what appears to be cholera shortly after the trip begins. Billy and Arthur, the wagon train's leaders, assist Alice in burying him after asking her if she wants to continue traveling with them or return home. Realizing she has nowhere to go, Alice agrees to stay with them and try her luck in Oregon. The following day, Alice receives more bad news. The boy Gilbert hired to lead their wagon claims he was promised $400 and expects to be paid the first half when they reach the halfway point. Alice has no money, and if her brother had any, it was hidden in his coat, which is now buried with him. It's too far away to go back now, so Alice seeks advice from Arthur and Billy, who point out that the wage is insane, significantly higher than usual. Alice blames Gilbert for being a bad businessman, but Billy believes the boy is lying, so he advises her to ignore him for now and scare him into confessing the truth when they reach the halfway point. Gilbert also assists hers in getting rid of the dog by taking him to the middle of the valley and scaring him off with a shot at the sky because President Pierce is constantly complained about and Alice refuses to take responsibility for him because he is not hers. The journey continues without incident, and Alice and Billy get to spend some time together, discovering they share many philosophies. When the hired boy asks for his pay, Billy tries to talk to him but fails, so he offers Alice an alternative. Since he's been thinking about retiring from the wagon train for a while now, he asks Alice to marry him so he can assume Gilbert's debt and build a home with a proper family. Alice is taken aback by this, but she has grown fond of Billy and accepts the proposal. A few days later, Arthur is concerned about new footprints discovered in the area and goes to check on his travelers, only to discover Alice is missing. She had heard President Pierce nearby and had gone to watch him bark at some prairie dogs, leading the wagon train much further than she had realized. Arthur locates her and attempts to return her as soon as possible, but they are too slow and are ambushed by a Native American party. Arthur uses one weapon to defend himself and gives the other to Alice, urging her to end things for herself if he is killed because death is preferable to being captured by the natives, who would subject her to terrible, painful punishments. Arthur is a skilled gunman who manages to scare the natives away with precise shots, but just when he thinks everything is over, a warrior surprises him and knocks him down with a quick hit. Pretending to be unconscious, Arthur waits for the Native American to approach and shoots him before returning to Alice's side, only to discover that she, too, thought he was dead and used the pistol exactly as he instructed. After covering her with his coat, Arthur begins walking back to the wagon train with President Pierce, wondering what he'll tell Billy. 5 people ride in a stagecoach to Fort Morgan on a different road. After singing for the majority of the ride, which annoys everyone aboard, Thigpen explains that he and his partner Clarence frequently travel this route while ferrying cargo, alluding to something on the coach's roof without specifying what it is. Now that Thigpen has finally stopped singing, a conversation among the travelers begins, prompting the fur trapper to talk about his previous relationship with a Hunkpapa woman, which flourished despite the fact that they couldn't speak each other's language because he believes that all people are the same in their basic needs. Lady Benjamin, a devout Christian, is offended by this notion and reminds everyone that there are only two kinds of people, good and bad. This sparks an argument about human nature, which is joined by Frenchman René, but Thigpen and Clarence only make passing comments, preferring to watch with amusement. Lady Benjamin becomes apoplectic when René questions whether she has remained loyal to her husband despite living apart for a couple of years. René attempts to ask the driver to stop the coach but is unsuccessful, prompting Thigpen to explain that the company's policy prohibits the coach from stopping for any reason. Clarence decides to sing a bittersweet folk song to calm Lady Benjamin down, which helps the woman but also makes Thigpen cry. Curious about these mysterious men, the trapper demands that they explain what they do, and Thigpen reveals that they are bounty hunters. Their collaboration is flawless. Thigpen diverts their attention with stories, while Clarence quickly thumps them. Thigpen also admits that he enjoys watching them die because the expressions on their targets are beautiful. Hearing this clearly frightens the other three passengers, who are now terrified of what awaits them at their destination. When the coach arrives in Fort Morgan, Thigpen and Clarence retrieve their cargo, which turns out to be a body, and enter the hotel where everyone is staying. René, Lady Benjamin, and the trapper take their time disembarking because they are wary and scared, but they eventually enter the hotel as well, and René closes the door behind them after watching the coach leave, realizing there will be no way out if they need it.